At 45, an icon in his dispensation, Cameroon's or one of Cameroon's finest defenders in history, Rigobert Song Bahanak, appointed head coach of Cameroon's Indomitable Lions, of course, by the current president of FECAFOOT. The chronogram of the 2021-22 Elite 1 and 2 championships and other professional football in Cameroon, also known with the kickstart and kickoff dates, also made public by competent authorities within the context of sports. What stakes for Chelsea would, of course, be part of today's edition of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the vitrine of your program today. My name is Bishop Rene, welcoming you to yet another very enticing edition of the program Prime Sports, on your reference point for sports in Cameroon, Africa, and the world over. We thank you very much for choosing My Media Prime Television for your information within the context of the world of sports. We shall be dissecting many things to thrill you and, of course, bring you abreast as far as sports making events in Cameroon, Africa, and the world at large is concerned. Joining us for today's edition of the program, as we tell you a wondrous good evening to you out there, the viewers, is, of course, a fine sports brain all the way from the southwest region of the country. Ladies and gentlemen, he is writer for My Soccer 24. Jemea Teke, he joins us body and soul in today's edition of the program. Sir, it's, of course, a fraternal honor to have you as part of the program today. Profound gratitude and thank you so much for accepting our invite to be with us on board the program today, Prime Sports.
Well, good evening, Rene, sir, and good evening to Ngome, and good evening to the televiewers out there.
It's, of course, the program you're listening to, the very first edition of the program Prime Sports on My Media Prime Television, ladies and gentlemen, and also joining us live in today's edition of the show. He is a fine sports brain as well, one of the best in our dispensation. He, of course, works with Dream FM Radio in Boya. Ngome Micheal joins us today. Body and soul, sir, a fine good evening to you. What an honor to have you on board the program today, Prime Sports on My Media Prime Television. You're welcome.
Well, good evening, Bishop Rene Isa. It's a pleasure to kickstart the morning with you in the world of sport, and good evening to viewers of My Media Prime.
Yes, of course. And now time for us to build on. As far as today's edition of the program is concerned, we gave you the vitrine already. It's about time we dissected what we kept for you in a reservoir of facts and information. We start, of course, to talk about the appointment of 45 years old former defender, iconic defender of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon, Rigobert Song Bahanak, by stakeholders of football in the country. It is, of course, a news many think is the right decision, but some are asking, what about the timing? It's a question we shall be putting first to you, left of the presenter. We're talking of Jemea Teke. Right decision, wrong timing, the appointment of Rigobert Song Bahanak. First, when you received the news of his appointment as head coach of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon, your first reactions?
Well, I think that when you look at the situation as far as the coaching status quo of Cameroon football is concerned, yes, we needed some impetus as far as the local coaches are concerned to be given the privilege to coach our national football team since the last time we had Jean-Paul Akuno and Alexander Bellinga at the helm. But we look at the issue of Rigobert Song Bahanak. It's coming at a time when we are talking of people who have bad faith. I will say it categorically clear, because when you look at the issue, as at this point in time, it was unnecessary for us to have a change of coach. As at this point in time, at a time when we are to engage in a crucial battle against the desert foxes of Algeria, who themselves are a contrast in terms of performance as far as 2022 is concerned. Remember that Algeria finished bottom of their group, and so there were still hopes that they stick to their coach, Jamel Ramadi, whom I think it is something. And then one thing again that I said is, to buttress my point again, is to see that it's actually a bad fit, because we've seen eras where, yes, in 2014, we had Fokafinki, who many would say, yes, Conceição could not manage the players in terms of administrative protocols to prevent the players from long-term discussion with the media. But I think that when you look at the era of Fokafinki with the Lions then in 2014, he qualified Cameroon for the World Cup in Brazil, and he had a disastrous performance. He himself had the same similar issue with Antonio Conceição, and we saw the fight between Beno Asuekoto and Benjamin Mukanjo in a match where they had to face off in a battle, which almost led to physical punches, which that reason alone for the coach to be unable to manage such a situation should have led to his sack after the World Cup, but it was maintained. And it took us to the AFCON in 2017. So when you look at all these issues, it tells you of people who have bad faith. Now we took another decision again in the era of Otto Pfister, when we were to qualify for the World Cup in 2010. Otto Pfister played the first 2 games against, I think, is it Gabon? Togo. Yeah, Togo, and Togo beat us 1-0, something like that. Then Morocco drew Morocco in June 2009. And we happened to replace Otto Pfister with Paul-Marie Le Guen. Yes, that was timely because we had 4 matches to save ourselves at that point in time. And the 4 matches at that time, you could be able to predict the teams in Africa where you say this team has a strong lift over this one, because at that time Cameroon was a big name. There was no smaller name. I mean, there were smaller names and there were big names. So we were to play Gabon in a 2 double header in September, and then followed by Togo in October, and then November we played Morocco. So the coming at that point in time for Paul Le Guen, it was somehow strategic and it was conducive, because we knew that Otto Pfister at that point, we were 1 point after 2 games, which was not a reflection of Cameroon football at the time. That was a good idea. Now, when you look at this present dispensation, Conceição has played 23 games in Cameroon football. Now, playing 23 games, losing 3 games, because we consider the game against Egypt, yes, though it was end up in a draw, but we lost in penalties, so it's still a defeat. Yeah, well, look at it. He had a win rate of about 50%, which we say fairly good or so. And he had made some strives to make sure that we have some stability in terms of our team. We saw how these players could be able to execute beautiful football against Egypt.
Jemea Teke, sorry for intercepting you there. You traced it all back to 2008, 2009, when we had the coach of the Indomitable Lions then, of course, being unable to manage the players both off and on the pitch. You cited the example of Asuekoto and Benjamin Mukanjo. We are seemingly seeing a similar syndrome within this team under Conceição, where we have a case of course, one of the deputy captains of the Indomitable Lions, if at all he is. We're talking of Bayern Munich's fine striker Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, who, of course, is not able to align with the principles and the terms of this particular coach. We're still seeing that aspect of players, being some sort of disobedient to the coach. And it tells us one thing: it's a perennial problem as far as the Lions are concerned. It tells you
everything again, because after that World Cup, when we went to Brazil, the likes of Eto'o, Makun,
Martin,
and the rest left the national team, and there was that call for Eto'o's head, not even the coach. So at this point in time, yeah, Choupo-Moting is still like reviving that same scenario, but it seems as if Fecafoot is now looking at the coach as a more devil at this point in time, whereas that is not supposed to be so. Because if you look at even the matches which Choupo was given the chance to show his wealth, he couldn't do it. So I think that it is issue of bad faith from the time when the Fecafoot executive had to align with that spirit of telling Samuel Eto'o to decide the fate within 72 hours. That's when I knew that some people are there with bad faith, because similar issues occurred previously, and Fecafoot never came in nowhere to revoke that. We are giving maybe Tombi at the time, or the traditional committee, or the normalization committee at the time under Happy 72 hours to have a rethink of the coach Hugo Bruce or Foka Finke. So I think that with this situation, it is more bad faith as far as our football is concerned, because it is not only at the level of the administration, but at the level of the players themselves. Because right now you will see that we're not surprised to see a Choupo-Moting being inculcated into the starting lineup of Cameroon, and that poses a problem, because some players who must think this way, that it is because of you our former boss was fired. So all these things put together, it tells you people who have bad fit for our football, who look for their personal interest to fight some people and allow Cameroon football interests to go down the cold waters.
Ngome Micheal, I think we have a very dicey situation we are dealing with here, and many persons, observers, of course, may be of contrary opinions to the appointment of Coach Rigobert Song as, of course, a trainer of the Indomitable Lions. But, of course, we know he has a very vast team of experienced technicians behind him to be able to, of course, galvanize the necessary support and all logistics involved in making sure we have a very stable team. But let's look at Rigobert Song's coaching career. Let's look, of course, at his performance as a coach and player. As a player, we would see these are two different worlds with startling facts, of course, and statistics. But what would be your opinion within the lines or the context of him being appointed as coach of the Indomitable Lions, judging by his qualifications, his results as former trainer of different teams at the national level?
Well, Issa, when you look at it, it is true we really need a local as a coach. Remember the expenses, and when we get to the point that Consensao is leaving without his contract and more getting over, that is the period he had to spend with the Lions is not completed so far. We already know that there is a huge financial clause. We want to, the FA, the federation, will have to disburse out money to keep Consensao calm and avoid court cases. But at this point in time, we are talking about someone who has played as a Cameroonian. He is one of arguably the best defender we've had in the African continent. This is someone who belonged to the golden generation, as we always call it, in that won the 2000 and 2002 African Cup of Nations back-to-back, the Olympic gold medalists out there. And when you look at it, Song Bahanak is that coach which, as a player, he has a fine CV, but when you look at it, his coaching career, between the years 2019 to 2018 and 2019, Song has been in charge of 6 games so far, and you see just a couple of the report sheet is not a perfect one so far, because when you look at it, in 6 games he managed 2 wins and a draw, and the rest of them are taking the negative side, and he's been in charge of at some point in time Cameroon's intermediate team in 2018, took in charge of the under-23 Lions, that is the Olympic team, and this is where his coaching career, we've seen it that we can say started, and it has not been a good one so far. When you look at it, you place it side by side, coming into a squad that has to face Algeria. I keep saying Algeria is not just Algeria, it's a wounded Algeria. The side that are coming in, you already see some sort of pressure mounting in, not only on Song, but we see it being felt by the fans already, because Cameroon missed out on Russia 2018. We find very bitter to miss out in Qatar 2022. And mind you, that is a showpiece where everybody would like to see his or her country out there in November or December, November and December. So when you look at it, the scenario within which Song is coming, he might not visibly, maybe the records are not favoring him, but the period within which he will have to work to prove himself to Cameroonians, the atmosphere surrounding it might not give it that time to walk into such a situation. But we are hoping that as a local, he will come in. We give him time as well to settle. Remember, we are talking about
Ngome Micheal, we are talking about you're evoking the issue of giving him time to settle. Cameroon has, in little less than 2 weeks, a fortnight, of course, to secure for themselves tickets to fly to Qatar and defend the colors of the national territory within the context of the World Cup. Many persons have the impression or the opinion that Song should not be judged by his coaching CV based on his results as well. And that gives us the impression that Cameroon's national team is a team for test and trial, because many of them are the argument that they buttress the argument that little was known of Coach Antonio Conceição da Silva Oliveira. Very little was known of Otto Pfister. Very little was known of many of the coaches back then, and we are now left with that impression. Maybe, just maybe, the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon over the last decade or so are a team that you of course come to test and know how much of a good coach you are or not. Would you endorse such an argument?
Well, when you look at it, you come into this team at a point where it is so critical. I think no coach has been that critical at this moment. 7 years in the camp of the Lions. When you look at it, Consensao came in, we knew little of him, true. But when you look at the period within which he had to fish out his players, at some point we all mentioned that Consensao looked like someone who lacked a first team. But it shows you that it was part of the studying time. And he proved it during the African Cup of Nations. I'll say it after the African Cup of Nations. I stand for a point that an 80% over 100 was a good one for Consensao to back home. Coming in at some point, we had a good game. It's one of the games we had the best in against Egypt in the African Cup of Nations. But when you look at it, we are 2 weeks from playing Algeria, and at some point in time, you see that when if Algeria maintained Jamel Belmadi, I think
even with their dismal performance at the AFCON,
we had all reasons. We had all reasons to keep Consensao and perhaps send Consensao away after the African Cup of Nations. But better, well, we still have Song, and what I'm saying is, if he fails to deliver, that is taking us to Qatar, I think we should not be that hard on him, because Bishop, when you look at it too, this is a local. He understands Cameroon's problem with the national team so well. And one of the things I see coming in from Song Bahanak, a legendary defender, it's this liaison that might occur with Samuel Eto'o in fishing out Cameroon players, good players that we know are out there in Europe, but haven't answered the calls to the national colors. So this is one of the things that, I maintain the clause, if we don't go to Qatar, this is one of the goods that might still come, even if we go to Qatar or not. Okay. That might come from this. We are talking about locals who are in charge. One person is in charge of the FA, that is Samuel Eto'o, and we have Song Bahanak, who is the person on ground and knows the needful. So in case we don't go, I think this is another benefit that we'll have. We know the players out there and how they are performing, so we can just bring them back home and start from there once again.
Teke Jemea, we would now take interest in the issues relating to management of FECAFOOT, that is Cameroon Football Federation, and we would take interest, of course, in article or chapter number 7 of the laws, the statutes of FECAFOOT, and we would look at article number 97. First, we should note the fact that chapter 7 of the statutes of FECAFOOT relates to the management of matches and the teams as well. And according to article 97, we would of course have a reading of that article that clearly states that the responsibility of managing national teams shall rest with FECAFOOT. That is, of course, article subsection 1, of course, of article number 97 of chapter 7 of the statutes of FECAFOOT. And of course, the second paragraph states that FECAFOOT may benefit from the contribution of the state in performing this task. The terms and conditions for benefiting from such contribution shall be subject of an agreement. By the reading of this article, one has the impression that management and the appointment of coaches at the level of the national team is the sole responsibility of FECAFOOT. That also tells us that FECAFOOT could, at one point in time, benefit, of course, from the contributions of the state. And you started by citing some of the glories of the Indomitable Lions, and one has the impression that Cameroon should, of course, have one, if not the most, rich or richest federations in Africa. But very little is known of the accounts as far as FECAFOOT is concerned. In fact, the federation still counts on the government for the payment of coaches. And that seemingly is why we have the government's hand in the appointment of coaches. What would be your reaction to that?
Well, it is something of, it's an unfortunate situation. When you read the articles you have just read there, it's on paper, because when you look at it, nobody FECAFOOT was supposed to take care of his various national teams and hire the coach, or fire the coach, take responsibility in terms of the bonuses of the teams. Maybe the government comes in with a percentage in terms of subventions. But in the situation we find ourselves, and in most African countries, is that the government through their sports ministries are the main pillars as far as the sponsoring of coaches and the national teams are concerned. So when you look at the situation of FECAFOOT, that in 2014, I think under Adum Garwa also, FECAFOOT willingly gave up their will to surrender their sovereignty to the Ministry of Sport. And even the so-called FECAFOOT executives who were saying that Eto'o should decide but we saw that it was orders from the head of state. So when you look at it, it is something that Fecafoot has not yet defined its status as a football house in Cameroon and other FAs in Africa. Because when I look at in advanced FAs, they take charge of what is required from the national teams, be it the women's and the all categories of the national teams. And how do they do it? They come out with their project, strike sponsorship deals with their different sponsors. Now with the different sponsors Fecafoot has, for without publicity sake, PMUC, Tangi, and Teke Jemea. And now when you look at all these sponsors, what has Fecafoot given to us to show that these sponsors actually give them money?
I think
those are the things that when you look at
sorry for the interception there, but we're coming back to you there. Let's look at this within the context of chapter number 5 of the statutes of Fecafoot, of course, which relates to the fact that is, of course, article number 79, the exercise of fiscal funds, and it says Fecafoot's financial year shall cover 1 calendar year. It shall begin on the 1st of January and end on the 31st of December.
That's why I said that
we do not see this. We do not see the presidents and the executive, the General Assembly members, of course, come together to tell us what is existing at the level of the finances for Fecafoot.
Yeah, that is why I said that the issue of bad governance at the level of the federation, and it seems it is almost the same old story that is working with the present bureau of Fecafoot. Now I think that when an organization strikes a sponsorship deal with a particular sponsor, you have terms of agreements where, for instance, Ajax for Cape Town signed a deal with MTN worth 400 million francs CFA. Those are deals where it is roughly open to the media, to George. You go to the Ivory Coast, they signed a deal with the Canal Plus, which was worth 1 million euros. Now, when you come to Fecafoot, reasons why they themselves are not serious in managing their affairs, they don't produce the balance sheet of what their sponsors give to them. Yeah. Because FIFA gives money to these FAs to run their football leagues as well as amateur football. And it comes to disburse money. So where does this money goes to? Because these monies are supposed to be used to sponsor and to ensure that Fecafoot gets its national teams up to tax, its football league, develop football in the country. Now, these monies, we don't know the exact location where these monies are being kept. That is one thing. And again, talking about
the location of this money, I think that takes us now to article number 80, which talks about the resources of Fecafoot. And chapter 1 says that Fecafoot's resources have been mainly derived from the membership deals, and it says revenue from marketing of rights and co-owned or owned by Fecafoot and many other things. And we have an article that states that Fecafoot shall create a bank account where monies, of course, gained through partnership and other deals would be banked into this account for the management of the entire structure.
But we don't see,
and we do not see all of this.
That's why I said it's a management situation, and most of our banks, most of our monies our banks have been frozen in FIFA because of the way we manage our football in the last 10 years. The discrepancies, the 2009 General Assembly sending litigations to the elected bureaus of Tombi Aroko and Bumbonjia that has crippled our football, where our banks accounts have been frozen by FIFA. But still without that, Fecafoot has deals where the money comes in from FIFA year in, year out. But I keep asking myself that on what ground did Bumbonjia and his team suspend a league for 2 months, saying that subventions from the government have not yet come, whereas they could simply go to maybe their sponsors and their various monies that because FIFA gave COVID monies, and other normal subsidies for the running of leagues yearly. So where did that money went to? That is where we are asking ourselves. So it's the same. It looks like it's the same old thing that is happening with the present bureau of Cameroon football. Now, when you look at the present, why I say so is because we've signed a deal with the Ngome Telecommunication Network. but there is still an open check on what the telecommunication network has brought into the league table. That is where the
No one
lies.
knows exactly how
But
much they
we
brought
know
into.
what will come from the government, but we don't know what will come from the sponsors. Teke Food has said 50 million for the winner for the league. But now, what is MTN proposing? Because I think that once you have a sponsor, I just mentioned of Ajax Cape Town having a deal with MTN some years back, close to 400 million francs CFA, and it was open. That is what you receive.
We need that accountability
that
from the managers of Teke Food.
As we get to the point of the elite championship, we're going to look at how this is going to affect future
the smooth running
in terms
as
of
well
our league.
of the league. Ngome Micheal, we're still on the issue of the appointment of Rigobert Song Bahanak as head trainer of Cameroon's Indomitable Lions. One now has the impression, because when we go by the communique signed by Cameroon's Minister of Sports and Physical Education, Professor Narcisse Mwele Kombi, we had seen a minister prior to this who came out in the press state media, of course, to say that Coach Antonio Conceição da Silva Oliveras would, of course, still be the manager of Cameroon's national team in their double header for the World Cup qualifiers against Algeria. And moments later, we had another communique, a letter, of course, from Cameroon's current president of Teke Food, reminding Mr. Minister that it is the responsibility of the federation to appoint and sack coaches. But moments after, we are told that it is based on instructions from the presidency of the republic that Rigobert Song and his team have been giving, the captaincy, in fact, to control the national team. The question is, who is behind the appointments of coaches in Cameroon?
Well, when you look at it, Rene, that is the problem we have at the moment, because when you look at it, I think this is the first time that the release is coming out concerning the coach of Cameroon's national team from the high instructions of the #1 citizen and sportsman in Cameroon that we know. When you look at it, it brings more questions to the mind, because we are talking about two bodies who at some point in time, as before the appointment of Rigobert Song, we saw them seemingly coming together on the same table, having the same idea of maintaining consensus. And minutes after this, it brings this idea that I mentioned some time back on this same platform that we have this idea as Cameroonians that evil, not evil forces, but dark forces, invisible hands or invisible hands are behind certain things in our football. And this is what we see, because at the time when we are supposed to make perhaps the right decisions, we don't see that coming, and now we are seeing it. A new coach is coming on, which many are in doubt if he will deliver, but we are hoping that he does so. So these are some of the things we are talking about: transparency at the level of Teke Food, which the body that claims it is in charge of the national team, the coaching and disbursing funds. This is time I believe many Cameroonians out there don't know who is in charge of this. We might say the head of state was the one who appointed a noble citizen, Rigobert Song, because they should release clearly read from the high instructions of the head of state. And we see that.
But should that be the head of state's responsibility?
Well,
it's a question that.
Well, we look at it. I think on the 11th of February last year, the head of state came out stating that forces. It was in between this period when the league was suspended for 2 months due to conflict between the Mbonjoya-led Teke Food and General Pierre Semenge. It was during this period that we saw that President Paul Biya came again after the chant to warn that people or those in charge of running football in the country should resume football. And that's where this is the second time he's coming in. To me, I think it's based on the fact that the bodies on the ground cannot agree or are seemingly having some difficulties among them. That is where sports-loving president comes in to say we have to correct this. And the solutions to all this is we know them in Cameroon. We know when we are talking about deals and marketing ventures that will bring monies to Teke Food. The problem is that we have taken administrators, unlike marketers, to put in places like that.
So it should be football by footballers?
Football, not necessarily by footballers, the football with football marketers and communicators.
We have a text message in the studio tablet, Ngome Micheal, and it relates to what we're talking about. It says, good evening, hello, good evening to all in the studios and those following by Media Prime Television. The appointment of Rigobert Song is not a bad thing to do, but it's done at the wrong time. The former manager should have been allowed to finish his contract and most importantly, complete the qualification for the World Cup. Song is good for the post, but will need time to gain experience, and that will of course match with his new working environment. I will not be surprised if we do not qualify for the World Cup. This will not be because we have a bad team, but as a result of the lack of experience in a particular working environment. The message is signed by Dennis, texting us all the way from RV Camp. We still see the issue of time. We still see the issue of the invisible hand, of course, conducting things at the level of the foot and also the management of Cameroon's indomitable air. But to solve this, should Coach Song be given the same time or maybe giving the same lessons as, of course, the coach of Senegal?
I think patience should be the main option here. And remember, I mentioned the clause if. We are currently in doubt if he would deliver against Algeria. Well, if he maintains the squad and as a former Lion motivates the ones he will be calling, I think in under a week, motivates them, they can deliver. And if he fails to do so, maybe the pressure won't come from his employers. But we know the fanfare of Cameroon, what might come in, and the amount of pressure that fans might pull on him. Like I said, we've missed out on an African Cup of Nations. That is something, a World Cup rather. That is something we are not willing to miss out on. But if it happens the case, I think Song should be given. It is time. This hiring and firing job hasn't paid Cameroon. We are talking about we pay clauses before as a result of premature ending of contract, premature termination of contracts. So this is time. Song, if he is coming in, if he fails to deliver for this World Cup we are talking about, we should give him at least 3 to 4 years. He should he should be that long-term coach that will see results from. We should be that person who will lead us, take us to 2025 and above, and let's see how it be. Because this is, like I mentioned, we are talking about a point where we need a lockout, and I think the cost for paying this Rigobert Song will not be as bounty as we've paid foreigners so far. So we should give him that time to rebuild and structure a team that will like to see play football on the African continent, even if he delivers to the World Cup or not.
I think the decision of appointing Song, the head coach of the Cameroon's national team, is preparing, at the time when the team is preparing to take their flight to Qatar, is not the best, because I think the players were already used to Antonio Concesao's style of play, and within this short period of less than 2 weeks, I am not sure Song can reveal his potentials as coach of the team. One last question for you, Teke Jemea. Let's talk about the issue of familiarity to a certain play style. And when we look at Song's play style, it's not too familiar. It doesn't really look like that of Consensao when we, of course, consider Song's different teams. But now familiarity is an issue we are evoking. What should Cameroonians be expecting? We know that the Cameroonian public is unforgiving when it comes to football in the country, and Africa as well as the world level. But what should we be expecting?
Well, I think that when you look at the issue, it is very complex for Song to have a good winning formula as far as this appointment is concerned. Because, like I said, I always say the timing is so wrong. Now, what I think Song needs to do is, first, we can't just throw him and say he is going to fail. No, we are not saying he's going to fail. But it is the reaction of Cameroonians should we fail to qualify for the World Cup. And what would be the reactions of Cameroonians? That is where I think that there will be a problem. So at this point, the decision has been made. We cannot change it because we expected that Consensao should be there. And this thing of copying, when you want to appoint a coach who think that's why I say is bad fit from those who influence this decision. Because when I look at countries, Senegal, Algeria, and the advanced countries like Germany, England, those are countries who, before they appoint you as a manager, you must be able to, the FA must be able to come out with a project at least a coach who can build a team for, let's say, 4 or 5 years without any disturbances. So when we look at it, the extent at which we have sacked coaches, we've had at least close to 10 coaches in the last 12 years. From Otto Pfister.
Averagely a coach per year.
Yeah,
exactly.
a coach per year. From Otto Pfister to Paul Uguay to Denis Lavai to Javier Clemente to Kono Belinga. You could name them. Foka Finke.
He was fired almost unexpectedly.
Majority of them we've paid
all those guys. So you could see we have close to 10 coaches for the past 12 years. So are we going to like sit? Should we not qualify for the World Cup and say, "Song, take this 4-year contract," and within the 4-year spin, you should be able to build a team that is going to dominate African football for maybe 2, 3, 4 years. Those are the things that you present to a person like Song.
And relates
but
to
now,
a text message that says, the issue is not who elected him, but the services, or who appointed him, but the services he has to render as a coach. And this text message is unsigned by someone viewing us somewhere around Cameroon. Hopefully, we have that
so
impression.
that is it. So that is where we are thinking that we still need to understand how many years Song is going to be there. Are we going to be more patient than Senegal? Because if you look at Senegal, because we are trying to copy from Senegal, yes, Song played with Alioune Cissé against Alioune Cissé in 2002, and he won him. So they think that bringing Song might energize the national team. But we are looking at a situation whereby the Senegalese were more patient since 2015. The closest Alioune Cissé could come was after 4 years when he had to play the finals in 2019 and then played in 2022, and he won the cup finally. So that is where we should be looking at. Are we patient enough? Because like I said, having 10 coaches in the last 10 years, to me, I think that is
just tells we are doing an experiment.
We are doing the ping pong game, which is not good for our football. So this point in time, what we go based on, he has the squad at hand, and he has they call him Ringo, the force, and so what I think is that he should maintain what Konsawo left. Maybe the substitute, he should have his own additions, but the starting 11 should be there, so that we know that after Algeria, those players who played in the AFCON should play against Algeria. Then from there now, he can be able to assess the capabilities of the team.
We have the issue of answering the question without the official lineup that we saw against Ethiopia, the lineup we saw against Egypt, the lineup we saw against Burkina Faso, that of course recorded wins and possibly near wins. We do not have a team that if somebody is injured in this particular team, they can use him to replace. And we have a text message as well. Gilbert, who sent us a text message. This other one says, greetings to you all in the studio. I am not in tandem with the appointment of Song at the helm of the national team. Just few weeks to the qualifiers of the World Cup 25 and 29 match against Algeria. It would be difficult for the players to adapt with the philosophy of the new coach. And this is coming from Agawo Fashion all the way
it's
from
correct, because
Kumba.
when you look at Nigeria, they were on the verge of signing Joseph Pissarro during the AFCON. But they learned their lesson because they had made a silly error. The person who qualified them for the World Cup qualifiers, Genatro was sacked. They brought in now Ewane. Now, Ewane came in as an interim. Now, they had already prepared that Joseph Pissarro would take after Ewane after the AFCON. Little did they know that it was going to be a short time for Pissarro to have a grip of the team. And they came out and reversed their decision because they never wanted to make that same mistake again. So since they saw a good football played by Ewane during the group stage, they say, okay, you continue. Maybe after the World Cup qualifiers, you are going to look if you are going to be maintained as coach. I think that those are indicators to show that we could have copied. Instead of going direct to look at Senegal, Senegal took years
to get to where they are today.
We are not saying that Song will not succeed. He will succeed. He can succeed with the team. We've seen Pep Guardiola from the Team D in Barcelona came in from a no name and took the Barcelona team in 2008 and made Barcelona a big club at the time in the 2010s. And we also saw the likes of Alun Sise, who came from the Blues. He had never had any coaching experience, but he came in and he was given that confidence. Despite his criticisms, he still managed to, above all odds, and he did what he did. We've seen with the likes of this coach of England, of Germany, who was given the job in 2007, but it took him close to 7 years to win the World Cup.
To build a dynasty at the level of the German national team.
So are we going to wait? That's a problem for Cameroonians. They might be saying their thing what they are saying there, that we need a local coach, but are they going to give Ngome Song that
much time that is needed?
So that is where the problem lies.
For those who are just tuning in, you're on to My Media Prime Television, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we're talking sports making events in Cameroon at 100 days in his office. We're talking of the new president of Cameroon Football Federation, Samuel Eto'o's. Many changes has already been witnessed, and many persons are saying, well, this is maybe the president we've been waiting for. But of course, we should also be talking about the resumption of professional football in the country for what appears to be almost eternity without football. And that is within the context of the fact that on the 12th of March, the Elite One football shall kick off with the chronogram already made known. Teams already building up to that, with of course the new down in the southwest region building up to not only the interpools, mini interpools, as well as of course the Southwest Regional Championship. But you can get it as it gets fever pitch within that preparational context. Ngome Micheal, you've been closely following and monitoring developments as far as the chronogram is concerned. When we look at the first fact that at just 100 days in the office, one only has the impression that there is the feeling of reconciliation that is fast grabbing the federation, the league as well, but we're seeing a certain degree of stability. Could this be the return of professionalism in Cameroon's Elite 1, 2 and other championships?
Exactly. It is at that point where we stop all the unfair play that we've been practicing, what we cannot explain so far at the helm of Cameroon's professional football, and strike a way forward. I like the way Samuel Eto'o came in and what he has been doing so far. We are talking about how he, first of all, succeeded in getting office, stabilizing the 2009 Feka Food executive that has been somewhat of a trouble to Cameroon for almost 10 years and more counting. So trying to stabilize that, it's been a good one. We equally see him signing a sponsorship deal, uplifting the prize money for the Elite 1 and 2. We equally see him setting a wager for players in Cameroon of the 2 professional leagues. We are equally seeing him, there are deals coming in, and more to come, most especially the chronogram. I think this is the first time we are seeing it in the professional football scene in Cameroon, and we've seen the dates is starting this month on the 12th of March and taking us somewhere up to June. We're looking at it. It is a good one, and other disciplines have come up as well. We've seen the chronogram. At this point, it is a good job done so far, but like we've been in the dark cloud so far and seemingly coming out into light, we are asking for more. Cameroonians should be asking for more, and I think Eto'o should be that one who would deliver it to Cameroonians. Remember, upon his winning the election at Feka Food president, it was stated that to some point many claimed he is the messiah that is coming in to rescue Cameroon football. He should do so, and he's making strides towards that direction. But when we look at the chronogram of the Elite 1 and 2, yeah, it is a good one. Other disciplines are in it. We are hoping that after this chronogram, in the days ahead, we should be able to see a calendar for these 2 competitions, because a chronogram stating that it starts on the 12th and ends in June, it should not only end at that. We match day 1, match day 2, match day 3, and the number of matches. If they are to play 20 or 30, 25 or 30 games, we should have that the first section of the league, match day 1 to 15 or match day 1 to 20, should be played between this period, March and April, or early May or late April. And then we get the second section of the league riding on to the next round, that is from April to June. And given that we will be playing with a higher number of teams and in 2 groups, I look at it within this time frame. I see it to become something very short to manage both teams. We are coming in from the same era, though it was quite kind of unstable. But you look at it, the matches of Pool A last season were more than those of Pool B. And you look at it, a team somewhere, Cotton Sport, the league winners, are kind of facing the problem of lack of games as a result of our last season. Not only our last season, but as well, though this season is starting late due to the African Cup of Nations, I think the amount of games they played last season is equally playing a minor impact in the way they are performing in Africa this season. So this is something that I think if that calendar, a sketch of the calendar is made before
the teams know when they play, they know the different venues of
which
the
they are
matches,
going to play,
and all of that clearly stated in a beautiful document served these different teams. One has the impression that there would be stability and why not professionalism at the level of Cameroon, Elite 1 and 2 championships. But we also have an impact. We have a problem as well coming from the teams. We hear very little from these teams as far as communication on their part is concerned. Clearly, backstage, we're talking about a host of teams that have already made some of their activities known to the public and to their fans as well. But for others, little do we even know of their different communication handles. That also is another perennial problem.
It's a problem because it is like the father of the house trying to strike a way forward, and those in charge, like the kids, are somewhat without any ambition. We have teams that have been playing. We are talking about Canon, Union of Douala. We equally have PWD of Bamenda, young sports that have been trying. We have a column of Jai and Lobo that have made mention of their way forward in moving this train and taking our football into professionalism. These are part of the things that we are expecting, and we hope that it continues. We've had players that have been announced for their moves. So these are the things that we are expecting. And when these factions, that is the teams, club presidents, and the FA come together, I think it will be that point, that driving point forward. And whosoever fails to join this movement, Rene Issa, it will be very difficult for you to benefit from whatever is to come from this Etolek Fekafoot.
Jemea Teke, we already know that it would start, of course, on the 12th of March. That's in little less than 2 weeks or so. What will be your expectations heading into this football season? We know that it's coming off the backdrop of many complications and problems as well, but also we know that the final of the Cup of Cameroon has not yet been played, and that marks the beginning of the football season in the country. We are seemingly going to start this season without the final of the Cup of Cameroon, because teams are expressing their willingness and their preparedness, of course, to take on this final, but no communications as far as that is concerned. What will be your expectations vis-a-vis the traditional marking of the start of football season in Cameroon that is facing very little communication?
Well, well, I think that when you look at this situation, it is very worrisome. Yes, despite the fact that Eto is doing some good strives to see that serenity reigns in our football, but when you look at the situation, we fear of a situation where members of the LFPC will revoke, and yes, they have said that the 2009 General Assembly has removed all the cases from CAS and the National Olympic Committee. Yes, but when you look at it, the LFPC, the present National Committee, who is in charge of handling the league for this season, headed by the General, under LFPC had Faustin Donke as his vice, and so Faustin Donke is not part of the Transitional Committee, so which I think that most of those members of the LFPC should have been in the Transitional Committee, because that will pose a problem. Because when we look at last season, there was one time which Faustin Donke came out clearly and said he was playing friendly matches, that he recognized the league of Semenge and not the league of Bobonje. So we just pray that we don't see such situations. But those are things that when you solve things from a cosmetic perspective, it tends to lead to disaster in future. But now when you look at the league itself, it's a 5 months league, which is abnormal for a football league to take 5 months. But it's the situation which we find ourselves as far as the situation is concerned. Now, we'll find a situation whereby a league, teams will be playing 3 games in a week, which that should be the proposal, because when you divide the pools, we have 22 weeks in 5 months, and when you look at 22 weeks, roughly more than or 20 weeks in 5 months or so, you have 22 playing days, which means a seat right up to the playoffs. So you can't actually match the number of games with the time frame which has been given. Really? So when I heard the transitional committee having a meeting to a smooth kickstart of the season, that is when I knew that they should call the club presidents, those who are involved, because the league is just, I think, 13 days to the kickoff of the league, and so you need to call the club presidents, let them understand the strain that awaits the players as far as the new season is concerned. But that has not been made, because you need to tell the clubs that this is the situation. We are going to program matches 3 times in a week, and let's say 2 times in a week, at one point in time 3 times in a week, and those kind of things. We have just 1 week break or so. But we still to get those resolutions between the transitional committee and the club presidents, and that was a problem. And even at the level of the sponsorship. Now, when you talk of the sponsorship, the mobile telecommunication has come. But now, what does the club stand to benefit? Because as it stands now, we know that the league is going to go back to what called the empty and the Elite One without publicity. And so, what are the clubs going to gain? Because Fecafoot has proposed his own budget or his own price for the league winner. Now, that is Fecafoot's own price before they signed the deal with the mobile telecommunication network. Now, with the coming of the mobile telecommunication network, what has been the benefit of the clubs?
And we have to know how much they're investing in the league. We have to know what would be their responsibility.
What was the cash which the mobile telecommunication network has put on the table to ensure that this season goes on free? You understand? So that is where now the problem lies. So it is somehow complicated, because even the fixtures are not yet out. So we expect a situation whereby the club president are supposed to be called. I'm being told this is what is happening. We've got these sponsors and these sponsors for our league. This is how we are going to manage this season. This and that. Because at a point in time, should we start a league without these clubs knowing what they will get at the end of the season? Because I think that with a sponsor, every club has to have a benefit.
Exactly.
Because I can't be putting a jersey which has a logo of a sponsor of the National Bureau and I don't get something from it. You must get something from it. So that is what poses a problem. So these problems have not been clearly stated. So we are expecting that the transitional committee should call a consensus with the different stakeholders to sit on a round table and tell them the way forward of the season, instead of sitting themselves and telling us that we want to get a smooth run of the season. No, you get the club presidents, the main club presidents, all of them from both Elite 2 and Elite 1, and tell them that this is what the first person gets. This is what the sponsor has given. The sponsor has given, like what Star Times did to the Ghanaian Premier League, where teams were being given $30,000 US as subvention from sponsor, as a sponsor, not even the government subvention. Al Ali was the same. So we want to get these details. That is what the clubs need, because the clubs are busy finding sharpening their clauses in order to get the season
build up. But now the players do not know when they will be playing. Club presidents as well are yet to be told how the league would be run this season. But many fans and followers of football in the country believe that Samuel Eto'o's era at the level of Fecafoot would take Cameroon's football to higher height. A text message signed by Mr. Austin, all the way from Chieftain of the Southwest region, the town of Boya. Ngome Micheal, that is the belief. That is, of course, the hope the fans have. But also, we are talking of Samuel Eto'o as it takes us to our next talking point, ladies and gentlemen, who was recently giving the name of Mola Eyole. Symbolically, it means the man for peace, the man who has come with peace to bring in that stability and possibly that reconciliation he so much preached about before he was elected as president of Cameroon Football Federation. But then, of course, we know that he met with the General Assembly of Fecafoot 2009. So maybe this assembly, as you all know, believe that they are the rightful ones to decide who is supposed to be president of Fecafoot or not. And it's as a result of their influence that we've had this very dismal performance, not only of the national team, but clubs as well not being able to perform beautifully on the international scale. Stability as well as not being there at the level of Fecafoot. Suspension and disjuncted leagues are all what we've been having. Eto'o meeting with some of these executives of 2009, do we have the impression, and can we start believing that reconciliation is on course? Because seemingly, Eto'o is taking a seat with too many horns on it, and possibly, thorns, I beg your pardon, and possibly, he might just be creating more problems while hopefully settling some.
Well, creating more problems, that is the wish of nobody. I think at this point we have been in so much problem. I think when you look at it, it becomes a sham, or it becomes shambolic when you see that the league of a particular nation, a footballing nation like Cameroon, has been held hostage from 2009 to 2022, if I have to put it that way. But when you see it, I think it is this point, the step Eto'o has taken as a good one, and he was in a meeting with those in charge of the 2009 our Fecafoot Bureau and Executive Committee. Both parties have come to a compromise that they are willing to let go of their dispute and sit together once again as one person. Remember, they coined it under the symbol of father and son relationship, and they have come together to make a way forward. This is something that happened so many years ago, and it just shows you how some people who have the mantle to move certain aspects of football in Cameroon take personal interest, or take office interest and what they benefit from the interest over that what they have to serve to Cameroonians. Because if you are still coming in from 2009 in 2022 to say no, we have to be given a mandate that the Fecafoot owes us a mandate, is just to show you that you were drinking juicy from that period and you want to still continue to drink from that. Well, these opinions or these diverse ideas, opposing ideas, have been solved so far, called to the table, given that Eto'o has been on it. We are expecting that this is something that comes and meets its final end, and let's march forward. Because when you talk about football in Cameroon, I think our professional leagues should not be at the level that we are today. And the step Eto'o has taken, whosoever does not hearken to this, I think it's time for people to be shown the door. Because we have been in bondage for a long time, and this is the time for change. So coming in and bringing remember, this is the first time we are seeing an FA president coming in. These are issues that court cases have been here in and out, and monies pumped, and we are talking about transparency and monies coming in from different directions, and nobody accounts for it. I believe these are subventions being to push football in Cameroon to another level were taken to court. So, but when you look at the way Eto'o has managed this, I think a 0 franc, or maybe not up to half of what Fecafoot has as money, has been used to resolve this, and it is seemingly going to meeting its ultimate end. So this is the time where we sit together, not only to work for our personal interests, it is time to work for football in Cameroon and take it to another level.
Jemea, it's seemingly working. One can confidently say it's seemingly working. It all began with the appointment of former General Pierre Semenge as chairman of the Technical Transitional Committee, a post he turned down, but little less than 24 hours after he accepted the same post, and went further to say that he is full of profound gratitude to the new president of Fecafoot after he was appointed the president, or the chairman, I beg your pardon, of that Technical Transitional Committee. We have the impression that somehow it's working, and it would work.
Yeah, it is working, but when you look at it, it is working in the, as at this point, it is somehow working for the interest, because one interest for the football, and this is the first Fecafoot president to step down so low to have a dialogue with the 2009 Bureau and that of Semenge to see that football grows in Cameroon, and football is being the first interest as far as management is concerned. So, but when you look at it, we say we just need to keep our fingers crossed and look at how they are going, because we know how Cameroon is. Somebody might just sit from somewhere and just evoke a kind of
another turn to the conflict,
which comes into degrade what it has started. So we just hope that, I still think that as at this point in time, the clubs need to have the interest first, because the clubs are the ones who make up the league body. So when you look at it very well, the issue of that, how the league is going to be run, remains a bone of contention, because yes, it's a two-pool league where you have one pool having 13 teams, the other having 12. So I think that there should be a clear cut on how these matches are going to be played, because it's going to lay more on the players, because the players will have to work extra miles physically wise to see that they earn the championship. And remember that it's just 5 months, and to play a league in 5 months is something that you as a player, you have to be very, very up to task with the physical fitness. So we just hope that in the days ahead, like I've said, there should still be a need for the various club presidents should be called and be told on how the season is going to start, and know what they stand to gain from the new sponsorship deals that we are to have as far as our league is concerned.
All right, so we take a few text messages in the studio tablet in connection with different talking points we've had already. And for those who are just tuning in, well, you've not missed the muscle. You're still on to your #1 sports program in Cameroon, on your reference point for sports in Cameroon, Africa, and the world over. This is My Media Prime Television, and the program you're watching is My Prime Sports. Well, we have this text message that says, I think the appointment of Rigobert Song as head coach of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon is a bad decision. Not only a bad decision, but also bad timing. Truth be told, Cameroon played one of its best football during the just ended AFCON, and I think Conceição should have been given the chance to continue, because finishing at the semi-finals is not bad performance at all. It was a game where they could probably have won. Where is the experience of Song coming in to coach the national team with a crucial game or crucial games coming up? Samuel Eto'o is playing a danger game, especially if Cameroon does not qualify for the World Cup. The message is signed by Thierry, texting us all the way from Chieftain of the Northwest region, that is Bamenda, and a host of other text messages as well in the studio tablet from persons who've already given us very mind-blowing contributions. It's about time we took you out of Cameroon, out of Africa, and we are taking you to the old continent, where we of course have an invasion of Ukraine by Russia, and it's of course crumbling not only Europe but also Africa almost to its knees. We're talking about the fact that, yes, you can see Roman Abramovich of Chelsea is on the verge of selling the football club. He has been at its helm for nearly 2 decades. And that is as a result of the fact that his assets out there in the Queen's Nation are about to be frozen. Many things, of course, related to that. And some are saying the Chelsea you see today might not be the Chelsea you would see tomorrow. First, Ngome Micheal, sports journalist with Dream FM radio out there in the Southwest region. What would, of course, be your interpretation, and what would be also your reaction within the context of the wahalas Chelsea's president and the club generally is facing this minute?
Well, without getting into the conflict itself, but when you look at the steps taken by FIFA as well as UEFA in resolving or punishing those in relation to this, it becomes so gruesome. Because when you look at it, this Roman Abramovich, this is somebody who, I think last year, any Chelsea fan or any faithful of Chelsea, you tell the person by this time your club or your asset will be on the verge of being sold, he would have refused. But when you look at the situation now, I think it is really a political move from let me say the West, because when you look at it, it is not a crime to be Russian. It is not a crime to be a close associate of Vladimir Putin. I think it is not a crime up to the extent where your own private life, your own business, it is being is on the balance for. At such a moment, it is really a harsh decision for me so far by England to punish Abramovich for something. I cannot be friends with you and you cause trouble somewhere, and might...
You suffer the consequences.
Exactly, and that is something. This is someone who bought the club. I think that is in 2003. Chelsea has been what it is today because of the numerous inputs that Abramovich has placed into it. Their trophy cabinet is rich. This is a club, one of the top out there in Europe. So when you look at it, it all shows you in the way that other countries that allies with the Great Britain are approaching this conflict, and the way they are approaching it is equally the same thing. It is not only Roman Abramovich. We are equally seeing that Russia, the World Cup, I think they have been stripped out of it, and they are currently saying the Russian Football Federation is out for an appeal to UEFA to be reinstated. These are all the harsh decisions, and it is war. Remember, at some point in time, you look at it, this same body, FIFA, had earlier on, at some point in time, our former Egyptian legend, that is Abu Trika, was out equally during the conflicts in the Middle East, was out and displayed a T-shirt of sympathizing with Gaza, Gaza, I think, yeah.
Gaza.
And it was coined that football should not be used for politics. But at this time around, within the first week of this 7-day or so conflict, we've seen players in the Champions League, players in the English Premier League, displaying. So the question is, it becomes war only when America or Europe is in favor of it, because the one in the Middle East was championed by them, and it was not war. It was possibly what they have been coining battle for liberation or survival or something like that. So that is the thing, and this same player has called on them to be of double standards, and we've equally seen the captain of the Russian national team saying the same thing. Look at it. We are talking about the UEFA Europa League, and Spartak Moscow have been automatically ruled out of the next round.
We have coaches in Russia who are declining and resigning from their positions as head coaches of different clubs out there in Russia. This is having certainly a great toll on football, not only in the old continent, but across the world as well.
Yeah, I think at the level of the coaching, you might see it as an individual decision to resign, because truly football cannot be played in such a conflict and in an atmosphere where the Russians themselves are not in favor of what their president is doing. But if UEFA coming in to strip without any questioning, the time frame we are talking about, Alexander Song employed at a time frame that is very short. The time frame for UEFA and FIFA coming in together to shift the Champions League to from St. Petersburg to France, and now banning clubs and more football teams as well as individuals related to this. It's so harsh, and I think these are decisions that have to be reversed, especially at a point where ideas are being raised of double standards for FIFA and UEFA. I think the decisions have not really been a good one so far.
Jemea, Teke, this is clearly a football war we are dealing with as well, when we start having club presidents and owners as well attacked and giving sanctions, and even of course declared persona non grata in particular countries, and their assets threatened, are on the verge of being frozen by authorities of some of these countries. We have this president, we're talking of course of Roman Abramovich, who has even promised to sell Chelsea Football Club and use the benefits of the sale to support the country Ukraine his country is attacking. What would be your interpretation of what, of course, is being served him within the context of the Russian invasion of Ukraine?
Well, I think that it is something that is so pathetic to relate football and politics, or international politics and football. It is way violates FIFA status. FIFA is violating its own status, where you don't. We never saw in any case where Russia intervened in the Russian Football Union, saying that the Russian Football Union should be dissolved. No, that should have been a clear cut for FIFA to give a sanction on Russia. But now it tells me of a situation whereby they say in the Jangi House you have some people who are at the top and some people who are not at the top. This is the second time FIFA is taking such a decision. I remember in the early 90s, when there was war at the Balkans, former Yugoslavia. There was a war that broke out there, and which led to the split of the states in the Balkans. FIFA came in and imposed some sanctions to those nations. And so this is the second time they are doing so. But when you look at it from the perspective of how people or states or world powers in the world control a particular organization, it tells you of how influenced they are to that particular organization. I think that FIFA is being remotely controlled as at this point by UK, because when you look at the trend of events that started, Poland were to play Russia in the playoff semi-finals of the World Cup, and they were the first to come out with that communique saying that their national team was not willing to play with Russia. Now, how did that situation come in? Look at how the trend is coming from. All these countries, Sweden too, and Czech Republic, they had a match, the winner to play either Russia or Poland. And these countries, all of them, had to put a joint statement saying that they were not going to play against against Russia. Now, FIFA came in and said, no, you have to play against this particular team. That was FIFA's stand. FIFA said, but you play with them, but on neutral ground. Now, with neutral ground, this team will not be allowed to play their national anthem, and they will be under the name of the Russian Football Union. And so, with that, it still didn't solve the problem of Poland, Czech, and Sweden. That made Britain now under their prime minister saying that we are not willing to play Russia in any of any of the national teams, be it the women's or the under 20, 21 categories, are not willing to play against Russia in any future tournament. And this comes at the time when England is to host the women's UEFA Nations Championship. And that again invoked the likes of Poland to stand on their decision that they were not going to change their decision to play against Russia. That caused FIFA. Now, since Britain as a whole gives FIFA money, we all know these things. It is politics. And since Britain gives, because without UEFA, I mean without the English FA, there is no UEFA. I don't think so. Because UEFA, the English FA pumps money to the FIFA and UEFA. So when Britain speaks, FIFA was surely listen. And so the person who also, since Britain is one of the biggest allies for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO, and is an ally to the United States, the United States is not talking. It's Britain that is talking. It tells you of how Britain has influence on FIFA and UEFA. So that's what I think that, and all those other members who are part of, who came out with that joint communique, Poland, Czech Republic, and Sweden, they are part of that particular group called NATO. And so you expect a situation whereby they will jointly say they will not play against Russia, and FIFA takes the clue. Now, Northern Ireland has said that they will not play against Russia during the UEFA under 21 UEFA Youth Championship qualifiers, which is to take place this particular month. So Russia has been totally isolated in terms of UEFA competitions as well as FIFA competitions. And even European club competitions. So it is something that the West, when you look at it from all perspectives, it's a discriminating nature.
Now, do we have the impression that these football sanctions levied on Russian football and Russia generally would cause or maybe impact and influence a possible solution to the problem?
It is going to slightly, but I think that should not be a sanction to be given to Russia. I think that what sanctions should be leveled against Russia should be at the level of the UN. Football has no business with what is happening with
I think we have the impression that football is a unifying
when USA invaded Iraq in the early 2000s and Libya, we never saw any sanction from the United States saying that there will be sanctions. So I think that it should remain only at the level of the EU, the AU, or the United Nations. FIFA has no business. So where I look at it is that there is this kind of interest on who sponsors you, because FIFA, when you look at FIFA so well, Britain has at least more than 70% of what enters FIFA. And even UEFA. So when you control a body through finances, you must understand that you must play by the tool of your fingers, or you can't bite your finger, the finger that fits you. So that is where I think that FIFA had to take that decision, because FIFA had taken an initial decision, which was so professional that you will play against Russia, but I think that
those
are the professional ethics of FIFA. But now when you come in and say you are not going to play, you should suspend Russia, that is more of a different ball game. It tells you that because you are sponsoring a particular organization, so you must, that organization must link to your tone, and that is what is happening. I feel sorry for Roman Abramovich because the Chelsea, which he built an empire since that his helicopter landed in London, I think in August 2003. Yeah, Chelsea has changed, and so it's going to be I fear for the Chelsea fans because we will not have, he spends close to more than 1 billion pounds yearly to see that that club functions. And if you look at an owner who has spent close to hundreds of billions pounds from his time he took over Chelsea, and now he's saying that he wants to sell the club because of such pressures. I think that it should not have occurred to him. I feel pity for the man because he has done a lot for Chelsea Football Club. If Chelsea is waxing on today, it's because of that man. Yes, because he was a one-man show.
Ngome Micheal.
He did more than a human job to see that club. So when the English government, that is greed, and that is you don't pay somebody back who has come to make your country to be known.
You put your football in a spotlight.
So have been
Ngome Micheal,
as a result of
this Russian invasion of Ukraine is exposing the hands bankrolling football in the world, and also exposing the hands remote controlling, because we used to have the impression that prior to this, football used to be neutral. But as at now, one is tempted to think and maybe even convince themselves that there are forces that used to exist in the bushes and they came out to control football, but now it's all clear and all evident that these are the persons who control football in the world, who bankroll football in the world, and who decide what football should be as far as different leagues are concerned, because we can see clearly the turn football is taking.
Obviously, Bishop, because when you look at this issue, like we have been talking about time here, we saw UEFA removing the UEFA Champions League from St. Petersburg. That was obvious.
And it cost St. Petersburg close to 60 million pounds.
Exactly, because only that with the UEFA final, money you benefit from hosting just the UEFA final, it's something else. And as well as viewership, as lots of marketing deals have been cut off as a result of that move. And FIFA made a clear cut. That is, it's just similar to like disqualifying your home stadium like our CAF is doing in Africa, and you play on a neutral venue. But when you come at this point where political interests are coming in to dominate, you see such harsh decisions being taken. Issa, we are talking about a situation, this is war, it's true, but when you compare the level of racism among Europe's top 5 leagues, you see it is somewhat too of a war, because this is the 21st century and we are at that level where people should not be xenophobic or hold some aggression because of
feelings and statements against one
because
another.
Of your color or where you come from. That is something it shows that to an extent the European community is not civilized. But when you look at it, the amount of energy, at first the knee-taking incident of 2020 in the English Premier League, it used to last for 1 minute, but at this point in time I think no importance has been attached to this anymore. That is, look at the efforts in this. It is a human casualty
as well.
It is a human casualty war as well. But it is as well not making Europe more hospitable to foreigners. I think the decisions, what should have been done by UEFA and FIFA, move the various games to a neutral venue, display solidarity messages to Ukraine, while the politicians and the political community tries to see how economic sanctions and political sanctions would have been the same. But attacking football and stripping a club, this is selling Chelsea. It's a long-term investment that has been broken. It's at the verge of crumbling.
And even if Roman Abramovich were to be entrusted with the club, we doubt if he would really, move on with this same club, with the same commitment, with the same passion, with the same verve and energy he has always had since the last 2 decades.
Yeah, it will come in case the club is not sold at all. It will always leave this idea on Abramovich that he at some point he can lose it at any time so far. So this is the issue, and when you look at it, it is really harsh, because when this is that point where football as a unifying factor that you mentioned, who have stood together to say we stand against this. This is the same message we placed. We've seen players of Manchester City uniting against alongside Zinchenko, one of their key players, to go ahead and see how they can fight against this. But the measures taken, I think, by UEFA and FIFA so far is highly political, and Great Britain should find another way through this, because it might go on to say this is a president who made, we know the attack is not really fair, but it is an internal decision of Putin.
It should not be individualized. We should not be seeing it.
It is targeting. It's being transferred to targeting individuals and clubs. We know the business that is out there in Europe with football club and Lokomotiv Moscow. They are. I think they have suspended their activities so far, but clearly suspended out of Europe for an indefinite time. It's something, it's personal at this point in time. Those in charge are the capitalists and the West. That is not a fair decision at all, especially that of Roman Abramovich. That is not something to write home about.
We are gliding towards the end of the program, and for those who are tuning in just this minute, you have been watching Prime Sport on My Media Prime Television, and as at now we are planning to kiss you bye-bye from this corner. But before we do so, we take a brief look at our different talking points and some on our last says as far as this is concerned. First, we looked at the appointment of 45-year-old Rigobert Song as head trainer of Cameroon's Indomitable Lions, and we're asking ourselves the question: good decision, bad timing? Teke, what would be your last word as far as that is concerned?
Well, I think that as at this point in time, we've looked at the situation. The decision has been taken. We can't overshadow the decision or oppose the decision. We can only talk against it, but it stands. So we just hope that Rigobert Song will have a springboard. It was a success as far as a successful coach. Yeah, he failed with the with the Shan team. He failed with the under 23s. But I think that coming with the national team, it should be a lesson to him to maybe beef up his CV for future appointments. So we just hope that he qualifies us for the World Cup, and that's all. But for Chelsea fans, well, I feel pity for them. They're not going to brag again because it's unfortunate.
It's certainly unfortunate. Ngome Micheal, there we have the chronogram of the football season in Cameroon made public, and we know the dates for the opening of the football season. Of course, we know that it's coming up on the 12th of this particular month, little less than 13 days. What would be your expectations moving up to the 2021-22 sports or football season in Cameroon?
Well, we are at that turning point of Cameroon football, and we hope that all forces unite behind Samuel Eto'o and see the chronogram, as we've likely said, should have a specific calendar as to all the segments that have been shortlisted in the chronogram and see a way forward. And when we are talking about football, we should know that football is business, and Cameroonians and Cameroonian clubs should show the business section of it, and Feka Food as well. We are hoping that we should not see a clash of sponsorship, because we already know clubs that have their sponsorship logos on their various kits. If it's going to take the traditional way of the main headline sponsor of the league placing logos on this, they all should come in compromise with the club presidents. We are equally hoping that I, for one, am thinking that this is a season of trying and seeing how the professionalism method works, and we measure our lapses and bounce back perfectly in 2023.
Bouncing back perfectly in 2023 is certainly what all Cameroonians are praying and vying and hoping for. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you all profoundly for your different contributions. Those who took time out to watch the program today, we are very happy you did so. Profound gratitude as well goes to the producer of the program, Mr. Eli. We also want to thank Elongo Robert, who has been very much of robust support as far as this program is concerned. Jemea Teke, all the way from the Southwest region, thank you for coming, and hopefully we shall be together, God willing, next week, Thursday, 9:30 p.m. on TV.
Well, I think it was a good program, and we hope that we gave the viewers the best. If the best was not good enough, then the better is yet to come as far as next week is concerned. So, well, we say happy weekend to the viewers.
Ngome Micheal, thank you very much for coming, and all the way from the southwest, we wish you a safe trip back to the southwest.
Thank you very much, and to all the viewers of My Media Prime, as we go home, we hope that the Cup of Cameroon should be staged and the date should be confirmed. Let's start enjoying football in Cameroon.
The Cup of Cameroon, we hope it's played to mark the beginning of football season in Cameroon. Ladies and gentlemen, for presentation, my name has been Bishop Rene Issa Zakabulawai.